All right, gather around, wheel lovers and car nerds. Today we are embarking on a journey through the entire history of, you guessed it, the wheel. From their humble beginnings to the insane corporate and cultural powerhouse that wheels have become. We are going to be tracing everything from the earliest custom rims made by hot rodders in cramped garages to big brands like BBS Work and Forgiato that turned wheels into object of obsession. We're gonna see how wheels went from a quiet supporting role to a flashy style statement favored by tuners, by muscle car fans, by supercar owners, and by even rappers and athletes. If you want to really appreciate how we got to multi-piece forged wheel wonders and carbon fiber dreams, this is the story for you. This is a long one, boys. Grab a snack, grab a drink, sit down, eat popcorn, go to the bathroom before we start, because we got quite a history of wheels ahead of us here. And if you're looking for a new set of wheels, you know the best place to pick them up. Click the link down below in the description, threepiece.us, baby.
Yeah, baby!
So let's start out here by talking about the very first aftermarket wheels. The idea of customizing wheels on your vehicle has been around almost as long as the wheel itself, though for most of human history, wheels were all about function. Going back to wooden spoked wheels on horse-drawn carriages, you would see craftsmen experiment with lighter or stronger designs to better suit their wagons or chariots. But these were more necessity than vanity. Then the automobile arrived. Early cars in the late 19th and very early 20th century largely used wagon-style wooden spoked wheels or steel wheels with wooden or wire spokes. The concept of aftermarket didn't really exist because the car industry itself was just kind of being born. Upgrades were either experimental or limited to performance-oriented racing teams like early French or British race efforts at the dawn of the 1900s. Messing with wire spoke wheels to drop weight. Now, a standard consumer market for custom wheels wasn't even on the radar yet because, well, no one really had cars. It wasn't until hot rodding exploded in post-World War II America that you see people actively swapping out their factory wheels for something else. GIs returning home brought mechanical know-how and a taste for speed. Shops in Southern California, the birthplace of American car culture, began tinkering with wheel designs, sometimes welding two steel wheel centers together to get a deeper dish, or rummaging through scrapyards for wire wheels that could be adapted to Ford Model Ts or Model As. And so by the 1950s, the custom wheel scene was cooking, albeit on a smaller scale. Cragar is one of the names that often pops up as an early pioneer and maybe one of the first in manufacturing what we would now call aftermarket wheels. The brand was established in 1930, according to Cragar themselves, although they really hit their stride in the 60s with iconic designs like the Cragar SS, giving hot rodders a distinctive, polished, five-spoke look. No, they're not VSKFs. This arguably is one of the first mass-produced aftermarket wheels that people actually bought purely to upgrade the style and performance of their rides. Kind of ahead here, the 60s and the 70s, from hot rods to muscle cars and to racing-inspired wheels. And once you get into the 60s, the automotive culture, the automotive aftermarket had really taken root in a big way. The rise of muscle cars like Mustangs, Camaros, Chargers sparked a need for more traction, better braking, and importantly, a cooler look. Steel wheels were of course cheap and durable as they'd always been, but too heavy. People racing their cars wanted lighter wheels for better performance, so companies started experimenting with aluminum alloys to make wheels. American Racing was formed in the 50s and they hit a home run out of the park with the torque thrust wheel that is still sold to this day. This is a five-spoke design, it's instantly recognizable, it was lighter than your typical steel wheel, and it had a stylish, muscular vibe that really fit hot rods and drag cars alike. Over in the UK, we had Mini Light making magnesium alloy wheels, and they were a huge, huge deal in rally racing and British sports cars, especially in the late 60s and 70s. Now, being magnesium, they offered a serious weight advantage to rally teams, and obviously, race on Sunday, sell on Monday, that carried to street cars. We see the seeds of a real performance aftermarket forming here. Lighter wheels is a tangible advantage on track on the drag strip on the rally stage. But wheels were still pretty functional. They looked good, but the real impetus behind buying them was, I want a competitive edge. The style factor was a nice bonus, but not really actively sought out. Meanwhile, Japan was modernizing its automotive industry. Brands like Toyota, Nissan, Datsun at the time, Mazda were emerging onto the global stage. And tuners in Japan looked to both American influences, big displacement, drag cars, drag styling, and European motorsport influence, lightweight rally wheels. Modifying for style started to quietly brew in Japan, although the big wave of style was still yet to come. So, around the late 70s and early 80s, the concept of a multi-piece wheel gained traction. A multi-piece wheel typically has separate components: a center, a barrel, and a lip that are either bolted or welded together. There's a two-piece, three-piece, two-piece bolted, three-piece welded, blah, blah, blah. The long story short, it offers weight savings and custom widths and offsets, which means you can experiment with different barrel depths and brake clearances. Easier repairs: if you bend a lip, you just replace the lip. And of course, a unique aesthetic, especially with the exposed hardware. Three-piece wheels with exposed hardware are just cool. Now, BBS, based out of Germany, of course, is often credited with pioneering the mass-market success of the multi-piece wheel concept. BBS, founded in 1970 by Baumgartner and Brand in Schlittach, Germany. The letters stand for Baumgartner, Brand, and Schlittach. Their RS model from the late 70s and early 80s is iconic, though not the first three-piece wheel. The mesh center and separate lip quickly became a staple in racing series, especially touring cars and on the street. BBS RSs in the 70s and 80s were super baller wheels to have. Now, the shift to multi-piece designs was huge. It meant that wheels could be manufactured in specialized ways, specialized sizes for motorsport, and that style became more customizable. You wanted a deeper lip, you wanted a different offset, you wanted different colors. You didn't have to redesign the entire casting, just select different barrel sections or take the faces out and paint them. Now, SSR in Japan, founded in 1971, also started producing multi-piece wheels, like the SSR Formula Mesh and the SSR MK series. Now, the Mark I was in theory the first multi-piece wheel, but SSR and BBS both debate this. SSR's approach, of course, mirrored BBS's motorsport-proven designs that found their way into street cars, and between BBS and SSR, you had the beginnings of a global wave. Multi-piece wheels, not just as performance enhancements, but for style. So let's jump ahead again to the 80s and the 90s, the global explosion of aftermarket car culture. And the 80s and 90s saw the aftermarket wheel scene blow up in multiple directions all around the world. Japanese tuning and street racing being one of them. Japan's bubble economy in the 80s gave rise to a generation with plenty of disposable income and an appetite for speed. Out of this era came legendary brands like Work Wheels, founded in 1977 but soaring in popularity through the 80s. Weds and Wed Sport, Rays, Volk Racing, SSR, yes, they're founded in the 70s, they blew up now, Advan, and a whole bunch of others. They offered lightweight forged or multi-piece designs that catered to the booming JDM performance scene, and a wave of young enthusiasts modified Skylines, RX-7, Supras, Civics, Chasers, Soarers, Tours, blah, 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 often slapping on wheels from these Japanese makers. Suddenly, wheels were just as much about personalizing your car as they were about performance. The idea of JDM wheels being highly coveted was also born in this period, as US enthusiasts getting an early taste of the tuner scene started to look to Japan to find out what was cool. And meanwhile, in Europe, BBS, of course, reigned supreme in touring car championships in DTM, BTCC, and others. Their multi-piece and monoblock forged offerings became must-have for M3 owners, GTI tuners, and Porsche enthusiasts. Another company coming out of Europe, OZ Racing, out of Italy, gained traction especially in rally and Formula One context, strengthening the European performance wheel identity. So basically, Japan style, Europe performance, and then they kind of blended the two. Meanwhile, over here in the States, the muscle car scene faced some tough times in the 70s and 80s due to emissions and the oil crisis. But in the 80s, you did have automakers pushing a new wave of performance, like the 5.0 Mustang and the 3rd Gen Camaro. Wheel companies like Centerline, founded in the 1970s, Weld Racing, the big daddy of drag racing, and American Racing kept serving the domestic market with lightweight drag and street wheels. Boyd Coddington rose to prominence in the late 80s and early 90s, blending hot rod aesthetics with billet aluminum wheels for a custom high-end vibe on your hot rod or muscle car. In my opinion, the US was pretty behind in terms of style at this point, but by the early 90s, the seeds for a truly global, cross-pollinated wheel scene were firmly in place. Japanese brand wheels started trickling into the States via the growing import tuner culture that was taking off in the 90s. German brands like BBS or RH were popping up on Volkswagens, Audis, and even Japanese cars, and the style mixing, of course, had begun. The aftermarket wheel was no longer just a functional component of your build though, it started to become a fashion statement, something you sought out to customize your car as you saw fit. Now we're coming into the wheels as a status symbol era, and arguably the late 90s and early 2000s took the style factor to a new extreme. You had multiple cultural forces converging. Rap and hip-hop culture started to blow up, and as rappers and hip-hop artists started making money, they were referencing fancy wheels as part of their persona in their songs. If you had big chrome wheels, you had made it. The genre that started with references to Dayton wire wheels in the 80s evolved into a full-blown obsession with big diameters, more chrome, more polish, and more brand flexing. Talking about that, we've got Lexani, founded in '96, targeting the luxury market with huge chrome wheels, 20 and 22, they were huge for the time. This quickly became a staple in rap videos and on celebrity SUVs, especially the Escalade or Navigator. Now, dub culture, the word dub, slang for 20-inch wheels, got mainstreamed in the early 2000s. Having dubs was an instant status symbol. Cars and music videos dwarfed older 15 or 16-inch wheels rolling on 20s. Forgiato, probably best known, emerging in the mid-2000s, came out as a flashy high-end brand known for custom-forged, made-to-order three-piece wheels in huge diameters, insane finishes, and price tags that would fund a decent college education. The rappers started name-dropping them in lyrics. If you hear a rap song, Forgiato, probably in it at some point. Now we have the tuner explosion. And of course, the Fast and Furious in '01 introduced mainstream America to Japanese tuner car culture, including flashy wheels straight out of Japan. Suddenly, even casual car fans knew that a tricked-out Civic had to have the right set of rims on it. Brands like Volk Racing with the TE37 or work with the Emotion series reached legendary status among import enthusiasts at the time. Publications like Super Street, Import Tuner, Lowrider, Dub Magazine, and Hot Rod hammered this point home that your wheel choice could literally define your entire car build. The bigger, the more exclusive, the rarer the wheel, the crazier the finishes, the more expensive, the more street cred you would get at your local car meet. Now at this point in time, the line between performance and style started to get a little blurry. You would see 22-inch chrome wheels on cars that had never touched a racetrack, or multi-piece wheels with less than ideal weight for actual performance but perfect for stance or show starting to come into play. Meanwhile, track enthusiasts still swore by lightweight forged wheels from Ray's, BBS, or NK to shave tenths off lap times. Wheels at this point had effectively become an entire design language of their own, with sub-dialects for performance, stance, VIP, street, tuner, custom, whatever, all that stuff. So now we're past the mid-2000s and we're getting into something controversial. In tandem with the popularity surge came replica or knockoff wheels. Where there's high demand for something like $10,000 per set forged designs, there's a market for cheaper imitations that mimic the look. During the 2000s, brands like Rhoda, XXR, Avid One, and others flooded the US market with cast wheels that visually resembled high-end designs but sold for a fraction of the cost. Now, purists and enthusiasts who valued brand integrity and engineering and authenticity criticized the replica wheel movement. There were, of course, concerns about quality, about structural integrity, and about design theft, and these dominated forum threads and car meets alike. Meanwhile, plenty of folks on a tight budget snapped these up because they wanted the look without draining their bank account. What's your perspective on reps? I think they get more people into cars. It's probably a good thing, but anyway. The debate raged and still does. The replica wheel market underscores an ongoing tension in car culture. Is it about authenticity and craftsmanship, or is it about visual style? This dividing line would become one of the biggest controversies in the wheel game, even today, like 2025. Now, some reps are probably safe for street use. In fact, most of them likely are. But questions arise when you start talking about track reliability or hitting potholes with stretched tires at highway speeds. In the 2010s, multiple shops and YouTubers performed destruction tests on the cheapest of the cheap cast replicas versus name brand wheels, fueling the debate. This conversation shaped how many enthusiasts viewed legit wheels versus knockoffs. And that culture war heavily influenced brand loyalty, online arguments, and even the language that we use around fake versus real. So as the aftermarket wheel market matured, big corporate entities backed by private equity stepped in. One standout example is Wheel Pros. Originally founded in 1995, but growing rapidly in the 2000s and 2010s by acquisition of wheel brands and distribution channels. Wheel Pros houses brands to this day like American Racing, KMC, Motometal, TSW. There's a long list. It's like 2 full web pages. This basically meant centralized distribution, so it became easier for shops to source multiple brands from one singular big supplier. They had huge marketing budgets. They could sponsor major automotive events. They could sponsor drift teams, off-road competitions. They could buy Hoonigan. all with a wide array of product lines that they could then sell off of that marketing. Now, many of these brands share production facilities now overseas as well, with variations in design and finishing, but the thing is, Wheel Pros is making so many wheels in these factories that it becomes considerably cheaper per unit to do this. Now, in a parallel, other large companies or private equity groups scooped up smaller wheel manufacturers or introduced new lines under established brand names. Think like MW Company buying ADV1 and Forgestar and Well. At this time, the wheel industry looked more corporate than ever. Although boutique brands still existed, this was more of a global manufacturing machine as the wheel market matured into a real business. Now, for enthusiasts, this consolidation had pros and cons. On the plus side, distribution networks improved, and warranties or quality control could standardize. On the downside, though, some critics argue that unique brand identities can get lost when everything is under one giant corporate roof. The lines between genuinely unique designs and rebadged clones based on market data can blur. So now, modern day. In the last decade, we've seen a split in style trends. You've got big diameter wheels now for show on SUVs, trucks, luxury sedans, rolling on 24s, 26, or even 30-inch wheels. The donk scene or VIP builds exemplify this, as does the lifted truck scene, where the entire aesthetic revolves around massive wheels and extreme suspension setups to get there. Functional performance remains a popular market segment as these enthusiasts push for more exotic materials, forged aluminum, flow forming, and even carbon fiber. The focus here is on one thing and one thing only: reducing rotational mass to enhance lap times and responsiveness. Now, old schools come back in a big way. Retro rides like 90s JDM or classic muscle might prefer period correct sizes, 14, 15, 16, or modern multi-piece wheels built to vintage specs. There's been a huge resurgence of these vintage styles in the last 5 years. Technology has improved. Forging and flow-forming processes are now a huge part of reality. You can get a flow-formed wheel with near-forged quality at a price that was unthinkable 20 years ago. Additive manufacturing or 3D printing is also looming on the horizon, with some companies like HRE experimenting with prototypes. The entire industry keeps evolving and evolving and evolving. New finishes like ceramic coatings or PVD, new shapes like concavity, multi-spoke, minimalistic designs, and new marketing angles are a huge part of the segment these days. Ultimately, we've gotten to a point where you can only invent the wheel so many times, so now it kind of is a marketing game in many ways. The era of MTV cribs might have waned, but social media took over. Now, you see wheel brands paying influencers and big-name builders and celebrities to showcase their new designs on the gram, on TikTok, RIP, maybe, YouTube, and beyond. The effect is both democratizing and saturating. You can discover boutique brands from halfway around the world, but you can also be bombarded by an endless array of look-alike designs and brands that maybe they're not so good, but they have a huge marketing budget. Rap culture, of course, still invests heavily in wheel flex, with Forgiato, Asante Savini, and Boston being regular name drops in music videos, with Forgiato kind of leading that. Stance culture, pioneered in large part by the tuner scene, has reached new extremes, with huge oni-camber setups, and they spark constant debate on safety and taste. But the truth is, whether you're into lowriders, stance cars, off-road trucks, time attack cars, donks, SUVs, daily drivers, whatever, the wheel remains a universal symbol of personal expression and fits your specific build in different ways. Where are we going now, though? That's kind of the big question. What's next? We can't finish this without taking a look at what the next chapter could be. There's a lot of chop, maybe, in the wheel market right now, but we're going to talk about the positive, not that. Carbon fiber being a big one. Companies like Carbon Revolution supply carbon fiber wheels to the GT350R Mustang and Ferrari. They're lighter and they're stronger. They are eye-wateringly expensive. Price went out. Over time, we might see costs drop, opening the door to more widespread adoption if the manufacturing process can be scaled. Right now, it's very artisanal. 3D printing and additive manufacturing. There are some concept wheels already being 3D printed in metal or advanced polymers. The idea here, rapid prototyping, more complex spoke designs that can be made with reductive manufacturing, and minimum material waste. This technology is in its infancy, but could revolutionize how wheels are designed and produced, and even lower cost, because we make a lot of chips in a machine shop. Now, EVs, obviously, elephant in the room, they have unique demands. Weight is critical, but so is aerodynamics. Some wheel designs for EVs are partially closed-face to reduce drag and increase range. As EVs become more and more mainstream, we're going to see more aerodynamic-focused wheels, think turbofans, that are lightweight to help eke out extra range, possibly with integrated sensors to monitor battery and tire health. Now, tying into that, we also have the concept of smart wheels and tire pressure sensor integration. We do see tire pressure monitoring systems mandated in the US, but future wheels could actually incorporate more advanced sensors like you see on the Corvettes that measure temperature. Heck, they could even measure load or stress fractures. This might require collaborative engineering between wheel and tire manufacturers and will likely start in motorsport like F1 and trickle down. The global consolidation is going to continue, and the wheel market might see more large-scale mergers and acquisitions, especially as smaller boutique brands reach success and get bought out. It's possible that we're going to see a handful of major players controlling wide swaths of the industry, with indie operations thriving in specialized corners. Now, here's one we don't think about a lot as enthusiasts, but sustainability and eco-friendliness, alloy recycling, eco-conscious manufacturing, and supply chain transparency and optimization could become bigger marketing points. Some customers might care about the carbon footprint of their wheels as much as they care about the style or the brand heritage. But no matter how futuristic things get, whether we're rolling on carbon fiber rims in our Teslas, scanning them with AR apps to check for cracks, or designing them in VR, the core appeal of aftermarket wheels remains the same. We are blending personal expression and identity, performance aspirations, and the undeniable excitement of seeing your ride transformed by a new set of shoes. Wheels are easily the most transformative thing you can do to a car. They are the biggest change and biggest personalization you can make. So there you go, right? So let's wrap it all up. From the earliest hot rodders in SoCal hammering out steel hoops in the 50s, to rap icons flexing 30-inch chrome monsters in a music video, aftermarket wheels have come a long, long way. They've evolved from purely functional lumps of metal to cultural icons that define eras, scenes, and personal tastes. We've watched as multi-piece designs revolutionized motorsport, as forging processes gave us insane strength-to-weight ratios, and as brand wars erupted between authentic and replica. We've seen wheels become a multi-billion-dollar global industry, not this year though, but other years, with giant corporate acquisitions shaping distribution and manufacturing. Yet, we still celebrate the boutique maker forging a set of wheels in a little machine shop. Whether you're an old-school muscle car fan, a JDM tuner kid, a drifting enthusiast, or a stance devotee who does not mind a little bit of negative camber, the wheel is your calling card. It's the literal rolling foundation of your build. It's where the rubber meets the road, and at the same time, what catches eyes at every meet or show. With technology progressing at breakneck speed, we can only guess where the next breakthroughs will come from. But one thing is certain, so long as people love cars, they're gonna keep customizing wheels in new and unexpected ways, bringing their own flair to each spin of the wheel. If this giant history lesson on wheels has sparked an itch in your mod-hungry soul, remember that we are a wheel company and are here to help you find your perfect set. Whether you're looking for a classic set of Kragers, a modern flowform design, a three-piece set of Works, those brand new VSKFs, something that sets you apart at the track, at the show. We weren't there in the 1930s with Krager, but we'll still sell you a set, and we carry that same passion forward. Wheels, to us as enthusiasts, are not just metal circles. They're an extension of who you are as an enthusiast. Keep rolling, keep innovating, and keep telling your car story one wheel rotation at a time. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you like these longer ones, drop a comment down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, let us know what topic we should cover next, and I'll see you in the next one very soon.